Hello my beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. Today's video I'm very excited to do because I am going to be ranking all my eyeshadow palettes from Nomad Cosmetics. I do have 12 palettes in my collection. All of these palettes were sent to me in the PR. I feel very grateful that I've been on the PR with the brand for the last 2 years. I know you guys have been asking me to rank the palettes that I have in my stash for a while, so here we go. Before we get started, I would love to welcome new visitors and viewers to my channel. Hello, my name is Eve. I love all things beauty. Here on my channel, I share about beauty and lifestyle. I upload new videos every week. If that sounds interesting to you, I hope you enjoy this video. Subscribe to my channel. And if you're already an existing subscriber, welcome back. And now without further ado, let's dive in. I want to preface this by saying that I love Nomad Cosmetics brand. I also love the quality of eyeshadows, both mattes and shimmers. Matte formula is hands down one of my most favorite in my entire collection. Top 5 in my entire collection. This ranking definitely has been very difficult because all these palettes, all these color stories are just unique in their own way. Usually when I do my monthly eyeshadow palette ranking, I typically approach this with a mindset of the price point, the packaging, the quality, the color stories. So because this is coming from the same brand, the formula is very consistent within all these palettes that are in front of me today. So it was not really a matter of quality. Also, it was not a matter of packaging because Nomad really doesn't cut corners. This was just my preference in regards of color stories for most part. Which color stories I find more useful, which color stories I find more inspirational, which color stories are completed that I don't need to reach for anything else outside of that palette, things like that. So take this with a grain of salt. I really had a hard time overall putting all these palettes into the ranking in order because I feel like in 6 months and next year I may just change my mind completely and just rearrange them in a different order. But as of today, it is what it is. But just know that all these palettes are very much loved in my collection. My eye makeup look I created with one of the palettes in today's ranking, which I will tell you once we get to it. So now let's get into the ranking. So I have 12 palettes in front of me today. And on the spot number 12, I do have a palette that was super fun when I saw the launch. It was very relatable to me because it is Florida inspired. It is Keys Beachy and Peachy eyeshadow palette. It's a larger format of an eyeshadow palette from Nomad Cosmetics. Very fun, colorful palette. All the Nomad Cosmetics eyeshadow palettes have mirrors in them and they're very nice and sturdy. This is definitely a larger format, so this palette is definitely a little bit weighted. So the reason why this takes a last spot in today's ranking, it's not because the quality is bad, by all means. The formulas are consistent, mattes, shimmers. These colors are super beautiful. Like the yellow shimmers, I think are my favorite. Some of these like lighter pastel shades, like the peachy tones are my absolute favorite. I use them in summer quite a bit. The only reason why I rank this towards the end of the ranking is because this palette is out of my comfort zone as its own entity. I generally prefer a little bit more neutral looks or a lot more neutral looks. This is definitely more of a companion palette for my specific makeup preferences. On the spot number 11, I have Ireland Wild Atlantic Away eyeshadow palette. Again, a little bit larger palette format here, and this is a green heavy palette. Definitely speaks to my soul. You guys know that I love greens. I love greens and I love neutrals. This palette serves you a lot of greens and they are stunning. All these shades are just so beautiful and the shimmers are so beautiful here. There's definitely a little bit of versatility here because you have some of the warmer shades here and then you have these beautiful blues here. This whole entire section, that these 2 rows are super pretty. Like you can definitely neutralize your looks, but again, neutralize with the blues. With this corner right here, you can definitely warm up your looks. I think this is a palette for a specific person in mind. This was definitely not for everybody because it has a very curated color story in a way. This palette, even though it gives you options, and I love all these options, this is up my alley, but I feel like my options just a little bit more limited here, and this is the reason why this palette is here. On spot number 10, I have New Zealand Stargazing palette. They introduced some of the beautiful multi-chrome shades here. This palette's color story is so beautiful. I do have dedicated video, by the way, on this palette. I believe I created 5 looks with this palette for the dedicated video, and for majority of these palettes, I do have dedicated videos on. I will link the entire Nomad Cosmetics playlist from my channel in the description box for you and at the end of the video. I really love this palette. This is definitely a bold, juicy palette, but this color story is just serving you some of the most beautiful looks that I've created. I've been using this shade, I've been using this shade. This shade is so beautiful. It's like one of my favorite transition shades. This shade is beautiful, like raspberry shade, almost like my lips today. This shade is hands down my favorite shimmer in the entire palette. This shimmer just gives you like the gold peach shift. It's such a stunning shimmer. All these shimmers are super smooth. They almost feel like velvety buttery and they're so thin. I love this formula. I love that there's a matte black here for such a bold, colorful story. That was a right track of thought when they were creating this color story. So I just think that this color story is very, very special. I do not have too many palettes of this kind in my collection because, again, I'm a neutrals lover. This is not something that I would wear on a daily basis, but I think that this is such a beautiful, cohesive, and interesting color story because, again, the looks that I created with this palette were just absolutely one of my favorites. So for the next 4 spots, I have the mini palettes. I have all of these little 6-pan palettes right here. The reason why I rank them midway is because they're smaller, they're more curated. You definitely get a tiny bit of versatility with them, but for the most part, you do get maybe 1, 2, 3 looks out of the entire thing. You definitely are limited in a way because of the travel size, a smaller size format. The palette that I think I reach the least is the Oslo travel palette because it is a very cool color story. I like them, I don't love them. I feel like in my daily life, there are definitely specific times and specific events that I would go for a cool tone look or a cool tone smoky eye. For example, I'm thinking of New Year's Eve or some type of like gala, something that's like very evening glam. This is kind of where this color story falls for me. This is very pretty. The formula, of course, is beautiful. The shimmers are beautiful. The color story on its own, it's just not something that I reach for or I would reach for too often. These 3 palettes had a different formulation for shimmers. It was the very smooth, like foily formula that would give you like a full pigment, but it didn't have those micro shimmer particles. It was just very, very smooth formula, but also very reflective and would adhere to the lids very well, would not fade, would not crease, any of that. It's just really high quality, but did not have those micro shimmer particles because there are some palettes that would have that different shimmer formula with the shimmer particles. I just wanted to mention that. So the next palette up is the Abu Dhabi palette. This is a color story that just feels like home to me. These are my colors. This is what I feel the most comfortable in, the warm neutrals. The depth that's in this palette is enough for me for the looks that I would love to wear. I just feel like generally you don't get too much versatility with this palette, even though the look that does come out of this little 6-pan palette, I absolutely love. This transitional shade is my absolute favorite. This just looks so super flattering on my skin tone. No matter if I'm tanned, no matter if I'm super pale, it's just one of my favorite transitional shades, period. The next one up is Canadian Rockies. This palette actually surprised me. At the moment, I'm specifically talking about the mattes, right? Because I like to create the basis of my looks with matte shades. This palette definitely took me by surprise how beautiful and flattering these matte shades are, especially this top row right here. So I am definitely keeping this palette right here super close to me because I want to use this in this season because it's a little bit more muted, has a little bit of like neutrality, almost coolness to it. I definitely want to get more use out of this palette and play around with this more during this season, this fall and winter season. So the next one up is Nomad Air, the original travel palette, the original 6-pan that Nomad Cosmetics launched. Just such a beautiful neutral palette. What's not to love? This palette I think was made for people like me in mind, somebody who loves super easy neutral looks, something that has a one type of base, which you get like your 3 straightforward mattes to create your look. You can take it from day to night. This is pigmented. This shade is pigmented. It would give you a lot of depth. So you can definitely do maybe like a lighter look with an eyeliner, and then going out, you can just smoke out that outer corner within like 1 minute and you're good to go for the evening. I love the versatility of shimmer shades here. So you get a gold shimmer, you get a little bit more rosy, and that's something that's a little bit deeper. So you can definitely do a little bit deeper, smokier eyes. This palette traveled with me, and I think that was the whole entire purpose of having like a smaller format. So we're in the top 5, and the spot number 5, I have Okavango Safari palette. I love the fuzzy packaging. This has a fabric covering of this leopard. I really love the inspo of this palette. I've never been to Safari, but it's on my list to do. I love animals, all kinds. I mean, I have two animals right here laying right next to me on the floor. I talk to my dogs every single day, and at times the conversations that I have with them, I think that I might be losing my mind. But no, I just love talking to them, and I feel like they hear me, they listen to me. I'm definitely like that crazy dog mom. I just love animals. I love going to the zoos, and everywhere I travel, I try to go to the zoo. It's just one of my favorite things to do. I just love looking at animals. I love watching them. I just think it's just such a fascinating world. As a matter of fact, this palette was the first palette that I got to try from the brand. This is definitely a color story that appeals to me a lot. I love greens and I love neutrals. Here you have a warm row, then greens, and then a little bit cooler row here. Really nice balance between mattes and shimmers. Definitely something that I could use on a daily basis very comfortably. There is a nuance with this palette, with my specific palette. I don't know if anybody else had the same issue, but I have three shimmers here, this one, and this one, that developed a hard pan. They are definitely workable. I can still pick up the shades with my finger, but it takes a little bit more effort. I really love my monochromatic looks out of this palette because it's very straightforward. If you love monochromatic looks, you just keep going in rows. Also, the undertones of all these shades, they are pretty mix and matchable, let's say. The next palette up is something that I'm still in awe because of its packaging. I think it's just absolutely stunning, and the inspiration was just, to my personal opinion, it was a little bit unexpected. It's a Fuji 5 Lake, and this looks like a canvas. Nomad Cosmetics definitely took it to another level. I've never seen anything more beautiful as far as packaging than this palette. This is a piece of art. They outdid themselves. The bar now is so high. I don't think this can be beat, really. The color story is super fun. I really love how the design of the palette and the location inspiration was transferred into the color story. I think it is a perfect execution. I really love this color story. I love the muted blues here. The red row is absolutely beautiful. I definitely needed more beautiful reds in my collection. And I love the yellows. The shimmer shades here are super beautiful. I really love this yellow shimmer. This beautiful icy shimmer has a kick of the blue, so it's just very, very beautiful, very unique shimmer in my collection. I also really love this transition shade. I generally think that this is a very interesting color story for fall period. So we're in the top three, and with the top three palettes I really struggle with because any of these three palettes could really be on number one. So just take it with a grain of salt, like I said earlier in the video, because it's a ranking video and something has to be somewhere. So on the spot number three, I have Ghost Town USA. This packaging, I mean, how many times have I talked about this on my channel already since this palette was launched? I love this palette. This color story is just so beautiful. This palette definitely is one of very few cool tone eyeshadow palettes in my collection that I am like head over heels. I do have a separate video where I talked about all my cool tone eyeshadow palettes in my collection, so you can check that out if you're interested. But this palette is definitely one of the favorite palettes. I like cool tones, but I do not love them. And sometimes when the color story is done right, and then there's something about it, there's like this spice about it, that I fall in love with a cool tone story, like Rose Quartz cool tone eyeshadow palette, and this one as well. This is one of those palettes that I just absolutely love. There's something about it, like the undertones, the shades kind of comes all together. And even though this palette is made into like the vertical 6 bands monochromatic color stories, but yet it is pretty versatile. You can mix and match any of these shades easily. This is very, very special palette. I cherish it very much. On the spot number two, I have the last launch, Polar Express. I love this color story. How many times in this video can I say I love this color story? Well, this is another one. I love it. I love the navy blues. I love this matte white, this icy beautiful shimmer shade. This section right here, this more like neutral burgundy shade with this beautiful like greenish gold, has my full attention for this upcoming season. This is the palette that I already just placed right here. It just sits on my vanity because, first of all, I've been reaching for this matte white pretty much on a daily basis since I've had this palette for like several weeks now. Very useful color story for me, for my liking, for the colors that I'm comfortable with wearing. I can see all the festivities here, okay? The Thanksgiving, the date nights, Christmas, the New Year's Eve, your office looks, they're just a little bit more neutral, yet with some beautiful shimmers here. They're not boring. Very well done. So on spot number one, you probably have already guessed. So when I first opened this palette, I truly gasped. I will explain. Chicago Speakeasy. What a beautiful palette. Besides that, this color story is just simply beautiful. The packaging is like beautiful velvet, definitely gives me like the Great Gatsby in 1920s era. I love the spicy neutrals here. This is the palette that I've used today for my makeup look. I used 3 different mattes, this one, and this one. And then I used this shimmer and this shimmer mixed on my lid. All these shimmers are multi-chromes. This shimmer gives you a shift from icy to pink. It's so beautiful. I'm going to watch a Wicked movie in just a few days. I think I may even recreate this makeup look to go and watch the movie, because why not? I really love this neutral section because this shade is literal fire. It's so gorgeous. It is definitely one of my favorite shades in the entire palette because it is just absolutely stunning. And this palette, again, surprised me. It almost proved the point that you never know if you like something until you actually try it. So I'm talking about these 6 shades here. You guys know that I do not love purples. Purple color is, I'm talking about like true purples, primary purples. That's my least favorite of colors. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. These purples are like watered down. They're muted. They are so flattering on my skin. When I was doing a dedicated video for this palette and I created the look using these shades, I was like, wait a minute, is that something that I can actually wear? Is this the purple that I can actually wear? Because that looks so beautiful. That looks so flattering. This is one of those things, is like, is this a new era for me? Did I just discover the purples that I actually like? This row right here, I also really enjoy because you get these beautiful greens. This green is so cool because it actually shows up on my skin just the same way I see it in a palette. I don't need to prep my eyes. Eyeshadow palettes from Nomad Cosmetics. I love them so much. If you'd like to hear more of my detailed thoughts, I definitely go way more in details of like nitty-gritty details in my dedicated videos. So I'll have the playlist linked for you in the description box. I definitely wanted to film this video for you before the Black Friday sale. I know so many of you, my subscribers, told me that you have quite a good handful on your wish list for the sale season. So I hope you find this video helpful and entertaining. Check out my playlist for the look inspirations with most of these palettes. I think I have majority of these palettes in dedicated videos because some of these palettes were sent to me in the times where I was out of the country earlier this year, and I did not have a chance to do dedicated videos on them. But there's also more content on my Instagram. You're more than welcome to check it out. All the links of my socials and dedicated videos playlist, find them in the description box below this video. If you have additional questions, comments, please leave them in the comment section below. I love chatting with you there as always. I hope you enjoyed my company today, and I hope you're having a wonderful upcoming holiday season with your loved ones. Thank you so much for watching, spending a little bit of your day with me, and I will see you in my next videos.